Thank you. Thank you, Ted. This is your friend Heather, and this is Heather's new profile photo on Facebook. Raise your hand if you would tell Heather, I don't think that's a good idea. Okay, could we have the house lights up a bit? Who said that they would tell Heather, I don't think this is a good idea? Who said that? Okay, would you mind standing? Excuse me. Why would you tell Heather this is not a good idea?
Because it's on the internet, and it'll follow her everywhere.
It's on the internet, and it will follow her everywhere. Excuse me. Who would not say anything to Heather about this? Who would not say anything to Heather about this? It's okay. We're not being recorded. Actually, we are. But still, would anybody just not bring this up to Heather? Who would press the like button on the photo? And who would press the download button and use the photo against her if she ever double crosses you? Ready to do that? Okay, moving right along. You take your 12-year-old son to the movies, and at the box office, you notice a sign that says children up to the age of 11, $6, adults $12. So from the theater's point of view, you and your young-looking son are both adults. Raise your hand if you would ask for 2 adult tickets. 2 adult tickets. Why would you ask for 2 adult tickets?
Because my son knows that he's 12 years old and he can read.
All right. Who would ask for 1 adult and 1 child ticket? Who would ask for 1 adult and 1 child ticket? Okay. Would you mind standing up? Yes. So I'm going to have to walk through here. Why? You want? Excuse me. Why would you ask for 1 adult and 1 child?
Because I could.
I won't say your name, but I thank you for your honesty. And who would give your son the money and have him ask for a ticket? Would anyone do that? Okay, we move right along here. You're at the mall one afternoon, and you overhear 2 colleagues from your organization discussing a client. They mention confidential information about the client, and they reveal the client's full name. Raise your hand if you would talk with them on the spot about it. Raise your hand if you would talk with them on the spot. Okay, why would you talk with them about what you've observed?
Oh, man. It's wrong. Someone could overhear us. And if it came back to my boss, we'd all be fired.
Who would ignore it? Who would ignore it? We have at least one person who would talk with them about it. Who would ignore the matter? Who would ignore the matter? Who would report them to their supervisor? Who would report them? And who would secretly record them on your cell phone video camera and post that on YouTube? Anybody? Okay, one morning you wake up with the flu. Look at that sad sack. Raise your hand if you would stay home and rest. Stay home and rest, okay? Over here. Why would you stay home and rest when you wake up with the flu?
So that I don't cause my other colleagues to get sick and be absent from work.
Okay, so you don't want to make other people sick. Who would stay home and work? Stay home and work. Okay, yes ma'am, why would you do that?
Because I'm going to feel a lot worse after I look at all the email that I have.
Who would go to work but avoid socializing? Go to work but isolate yourself. Who would do that? Anyone? And who would go to work but socialize only with the people you don't like? I saw a few hands. Okay, and finally, your coworker drives you to work one afternoon, and at the stoplight, she whips out her BlackBerry and starts checking her email and texting, and then when the light turns, she continues texting. Raise your hand if you would tell her, please put that thing away. Please put that thing away. Why would you do that?
Because I'm the passenger, and I don't want to get hurt.
All right. Who would not say anything about it? Who would not say anything about it? Okay, over here. Could you just stand up and tell us why you would not say anything? Because you do the same thing. Thank you. Who would say, pull over and let me out of the car now? Pull over and let me out of the car. Okay, a couple over there. And who would just take the thing and toss it out the window? We've all felt like that. Okay, now, what have we learned by this little experiment? What have we learned? People are dishonest is one of the things. Okay, anything else? When faced with a range of possibilities, we don't always agree about what we ought to do. Well, my question to you, no matter what you happen to pick, with the flu example, whether you happen to pick staying home and resting, staying home and working, going to work, you believe that that option is the best one. Well, how do we know what the best one really is? The solution to all these problems, and any other time you find yourself asking, what should I do within the testing industry or outside of it, lies in 5 simple principles that you already know. You learn these from your parents, from your teachers. If you're a person of conscience, a person of faith, you learned it where you worship. But let's face it, in the course of becoming busy professionals, successful professionals, sometimes we put these aside to focus on other things that maybe aren't that important in the long run. So what I'd like to do is review these principles and then take a look at the quiz again and see if the principles can point us in the right direction. So without further ado, these 5 principles are: do no harm. 2, make things better. Number 3, respect others. Number 4, be fair. And finally,
well, I can't be bothered with sorrow, and I can't be bothered with hate, no, no.
be loving. I call these the principles of ethical intelligence. It sounds like emotional intelligence, but it's not quite the same thing, and I'll tell you why. Have you read Daniel Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence? It was published over 15 years ago. It's been translated into over 20 languages. It's a fantastic book. It rocked the world, but it only takes us so far. Suppose you and I know each other pretty well, and we see each other at this meeting, and you say, "Hey, Bruce, how are you doing?" And I say, "I'm fine." I say I'm fine, but you can tell by the way I'm holding my head, the tone of my voice, the way I'm slouching, the fact that I look paler than normal, that I'm anything but fine. You see a difference between what I say and what the truth is. How do you know what the truth is? How do you know that I'm actually not fine? It's through your emotional intelligence, your ability to perceive what's actually going on. All of these nonverbal cues tells you that I'm not fine. But then the question is, well, what should you do? Should you say something, "Hey, Bruce, are you okay? Is your marriage all right? Are you not feeling well?" Should you not say anything and assume I'm a big boy, I can figure out what the problem is on my own? Should you follow up later with an email or a text? Not while you're driving. What's the right thing to do? Emotional intelligence won't tell you the answer. Emotional intelligence cannot tell you the answer because emotional intelligence is a psychological phenomenon. When we ask what's the right thing to do, we're asking an ethical question, and so it calls upon us to draw upon the principles of ethics, and that's what these principles are. I use the term emotional intelligence rather than ethics because, frankly, I think emotional intelligence just sounds more appealing. Ethics has this punitive feeling to it, right? Ethics sounds like somebody shaking their finger at you, "Don't do this." What I want to show you, though, is that it is in your best interest to live an ethically intelligent life. Let's take a look at these 5 principles a little more closely. Number 1, do no harm. You hear "do no harm" all the time. You hear it when you turn on cable news, you see it in the paper, you hear about it. But to what social group does this normally apply? Physicians, nurses, pharmacists, people in the healthcare community, because we know that if you're a medical student, you learn in medical school, first, do no harm. But when you think about it, doesn't the principle do no harm apply not just to doctors and pharmacists, but to you in the testing industry? Doesn't it really apply to all of us? I want you to try this little exercise. Find a partner, the person next to you, and tell your partner a time where you successfully did no harm, even though it would have been very tempting to give in to your less noble impulse. For example, a couple of weeks ago, I was on the highway, and someone sped right past me, cursed at me, cut me off. And believe me, I'm from New York, so I wanted to return the favor, but I chose, you know what, I'm going to restrain that impulse. And quite frankly, I was glad I did because my blood pressure didn't go through the roof after cursing at him, and I wasn't worried about ending up on YouTube, you know, with all of this nasty behavior to be accounted for. So find someone, turn to your partner and talk about a time where you, professionally or personally, chose to do no harm, and your partner will tell you the same, and then we'll ask for some volunteers to say what their partner said. Okay, so please take a minute to do this. Could we have the house lights up? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Who would like to? I'm glad it was such a successful exercise. Who would like to tell us what their partner said? Who would like to tell us what their partner said? And I'll tell you what, I knew that there would be some reluctance to do this, so the first 3 people to tell us what their partner said, I'll give you a free audiobook. How's that for a bribe? Who would like to tell us what their partner said about some creative way that they chose to do no harm? I saw some laughter going on here. Would you be willing to no? Anybody? Anybody want to tell us what their oh, great. Okay, thank you. Okay. We're telling what your partner said, yes? Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm going to share, I think this is a good idea. She said that she will write the email in response to something that's annoyed her, but never send it.
That is great. Thank you. Here's an audiobook, and you're the one who did it. You get one, too. Okay. Who else? Who else had a... Okay, over here. Excuse me, ma'am. Yes. Right. Oh, I'm sorry. You have to tell us first.
Oh. Well, so we had a great discussion. We're both from D.C., and there's the whole D.C. metro issue where you literally have to like push your way on during rush hour. So it's always the decision to not push your way on and actually try to be respectful of the people around you.
That's excellent. Here you go. Here's your audiobook. I saw a picture in Tokyo where they're actually, this is a job in Tokyo. You hold a plunger and you push the people in. Boy, that's a job I would like. Well, okay, so moving now. We talked about do no harm. There are 2 important corollaries to do no harm that are really worth looking at within the testing industry. The first corollary is prevent harm to others. Because let's face it, whether you're restraining the impulse to push your way into the subway, or restraining the impulse to send a nasty email, or restraining an impulse to flip the bird to a hostile driver on the highway, do no harm is a principle of restraint. All you have to do to apply it is nothing. But this corollary that I'm talking about calls upon us to do something rather than nothing. And I want to share with you a couple of upcoming events here at the meeting that I spied. Okay, let's take a look over here. The first is the ATP Security Committee breakfast briefing. If you're not taking precautions to secure your exam content and intellectual property, you may be inviting theft. All about protecting intellectual property. Then I happened to spy a talk later today by the esteemed group of Carla Egan, Gary Schaefer, and Jessalyn Smith. You all here? Where are those 3 fantastic people? Are you here? Shame on you, and I am promoting your talk. In any case, here's a summary of their presentation called Innovative Methods to Detect Cheating in Large-Scale Assessment Programs. And I quote, "A test security breach has serious implications for the psychometric integrity of the reported test scores and on the interpretations and consequences of those scores. Once test security is breached, we can no longer be certain that the test score is an accurate reflection of test taker ability." Now, on the face of it, these 2 sessions seem to be about business issues, right? They seem to be about protecting your business interests. And they are, but fundamentally they're about this corollary, prevent harm. Because it turns out that if you take measures to live an ethically intelligent life, if you take measures to protect the integrity of your business, you will in fact in the long run prosper. But that's not the reason to do it. The reason to protect test integrity is because it's the ethically intelligent thing to do. It just so happens in the long run, you will benefit professionally and personally when you take those measures. The second corollary to do no harm calls upon us to minimize harm that is unavoidable. Minimize harm that is unavoidable. Because let's face it, sometimes you have to hurt people. Sometimes it is ethically required to hurt people. And I'm not just talking about if you're Dirty Harry. If your marriage is at the end of the road, or your romantic relationship is at the end of the road, and you have to end it, it's going to hurt people. If you have to downsize members of your department, it's going to be hurtful. If you have to fire someone for cheating or for bilking the company of money, it's going to hurt people. But the ethically intelligent solution is to minimize harm that is unavoidable. When I was in the dating world, there's one date that, well, there are many that stand out for a variety of reasons, but one that stands out was on the 3rd date, the woman I was with said, you know, Bruce, I just don't feel a spark. And I thought, you know, that stung, but I admired her for having the courage to actually face up to it rather than to do what most people, including me, usually did when it didn't work. We just wouldn't return the other person's calls or respond to the other person's emails. She knew it was going to be hurtful, but she said it in the most respectful way possible. When, you know, in New York, I know someone in the banking industry whose bank, you know how they let people know that they've been downsized? When they show up at work and they try to log on to their computer, the company has changed their password. And you hear about people being let go through phone calls, through emails. I'm sure someone by now has been fired through a text. And when you ask managers, why would you fire someone, you know, this way? Why would you downsize someone this way? The answer inevitably is, I thought it would be easier. Well, it is easier, but for whom? Unfortunately, you know, sometimes you have to man up or woman up and face the responsibility and do the dirty work in person, because that minimizes harm that is unavoidable and it shows that you are ethically intelligent. Principle number 2, making things better. How many of you flew to this meeting with the assistance of a plane? All right, now when you were, unless you were with my friend Heather there with a bong, maybe you didn't need a plane. But when, you know, the flight stewardess, boy, am I dating myself. They used to be called air hostesses. Remember that? Air hostesses. Now they're flight attendants. Anyway, when they tell you at the beginning about, in the event of a water landing, there's a euphemism. Why not just say, in the event that we crash into the ocean? Well, I guess that's a little more frightening. So they want to minimize harm, and they say, in the event of a water landing, oxygen masks will drop down, and so the first thing to do is to help the people around you, right? So that they will be protected, right? I just want to see if you're with me. What's the first thing you're supposed to do when the oxygen mask drops down? Help. But even if you were the child, you're supposed to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. Why is that? Because if you're not in good shape, you can't help anybody else. Well, now that implies that the reason to make things better for yourself as well as others is so that you can be of service to other people. But that's not quite true. The reason to make things better for everyone, including yourself, is because it's the ethically intelligent thing to do. You deserve to be treated with respect, kindly, as well as the people around you. So here's the thing. I know that you make things better every single day for your stakeholders. I know you make things better for the people who hire you, for your employer, for students who take your exams. But the thing is, do you take time every single day to make things better for yourself? Do you take time every single day to have 3 good meals without distractions? If you don't take time every single day to have 3 good meals, that's not unfortunate, it is unethical. If you don't take time to exercise every single day, even if it means just walking around the block a couple of times, that's not unfortunate, it's unethical. Because ethical intelligence means that we treat ourselves as well as other people well. Ethics is not just about how we treat others, it's also about how we treat ourselves. Number 3, respect others. 3 important ways that we show respect for people. The first is by keeping private things private. And we'll see in a minute how that plays out with the mall example. I was in a hospital elevator once in West Virginia, and I overheard 2 physicians talking about a patient who had just had a quintuple bypass procedure, and they mentioned the patient's full name. And I happened to know the guy, but I didn't know that he was sick. So then I wondered, well, should I send him a get well card? Should I call him? And if I do send him a get well card and he says, how did you know I had an operation? I couldn't very well say, because I heard your doctors talking about you in the hospital elevator. Now, I'm not saying that these doctors were bad people, but they weren't ethically intelligent in that context because they were taking information that was entrusted to them and spreading it out to people who had no need or right to know. We'll talk about in a minute what you should do when you observe this sort of thing. All I'm saying is that breaches of confidentiality show disrespect for people. Now, it sounds, though, when we talk about respect, that we're talking about etiquette. Well, etiquette and ethics both have something to do with respect for others. There's some aspects of disrespect that are clearly within the realm of etiquette. So if you invite someone over for a dinner party and they make a mess in your bathroom and they make disgusting chewing noises and they wipe their mouth on their sleeve, that person has shown disrespect for you, but has not acted unethically, he or she has been rude. But if this person snoops around in your medicine cabinet and then tweets to her 1,000 followers all about all the prescription drugs you have, that's disrespectful in a much more serious way, because disrespect in the ethical sense cuts much more deeply. Confidentiality violations are one form of disrespect. Another way that we show respect for people is by our willingness to tell the truth. I want you now to take out a piece of paper and write about a time where you told someone the truth even though it was very difficult to do that and something good happened as a result. For example, when I was in grad school and I was charged with grading 80 papers, 80 exams, somehow I lost these things. I don't know if I threw them out accidentally or what happened, but I thought of all these elegant ways of lying to the professor about what happened to them. I was robbed over the weekend or whatever. And then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to tell him the truth. I know he's going to blow his stack, but I'm going to tell him the truth. And guess what? He was the nicest guy about it. He said, look, it happens. I'm sorry. I admire your honesty for telling me you're going to have to make it up, but it's a good thing that you told me the truth. So I'd like for you to take a moment to write about a time when you told the truth to someone, even though it wasn't easy to do that, and something good happened. So take a moment just to write. You're not talking about this with people. You're just writing about it on your own. May I ask for a volunteer to share a time that you told the truth, even though it wasn't easy to do that, but something good happened as a result. And to provide an additional incentive, I will give you an audiobook if you do that. Anybody willing to take the plunge? Okay, all the way in the back. Yes, sir. Tell us about a time you told the truth.
I told my buddy his fly was down. He zipped it back.
Now, of course, I'm worried that my fly is down. But thank you very much for that. Any other truth-telling? Oh, and what happened, by the way? Are you still friends? Oh, good. Okay. Anything else? Yes, sir.
I had a kind of a rising star young staff member in a test development unit that I was in charge of. I did her appraisal and I said, I don't think you're going to be as good as you can be unless you choose very strong reviewers, the most severe reviewers around. And she got so mad, she stomped out of my office and said, I thought you were a friend. And then much later, months later, she said, you know, you were right.
That's a great story. Here's your book. Thank you very much. And a third way that we show respect for people is by our willingness to keep our promises, no matter how difficult that may be. Have you ever had a friend who routinely broke engagements with you? You make plans to have lunch or drinks or coffee or go to the movies, and then inevitably at the last minute, the person calls or emails or texts and says, sorry, something came up. Well, things do come up from time to time, but if someone routinely breaks promises, it feels as though they don't respect you. And that's because somebody who routinely breaks promises to you doesn't really respect you. It's difficult to do this when something better comes along, to keep our promises, and yet it is an ethically intelligent way of showing respect for people. The fourth principle of ethical intelligence tells us that we ought to treat people fairly, and this really means to give to others their due. One of the most important ways that you show fairness in your roles in the testing industry or in your role as a parent is by how you choose to discipline people. So we're going to do another buddy-buddy exercise. I want you to talk with your buddy and tell your buddy about a time where you disciplined someone appropriately. It wasn't easy to do, but something good happened as a result. You disciplined someone in an appropriate way, and it wasn't easy to do. It would have been a lot easier to turn away from this, but you chose to discipline this person, and something good happened as a result. Please talk with your partner about this right now. Okay, who would like to tell us about something your partner said where he or she disciplined someone fairly? Who would like to volunteer a story that you just heard that people will really enjoy hearing? Who would okay, over here. We have a story. We have a story. Yes, ma'am. Tell us. Let's hear.
Well, we were just saying, I had someone who was an employee who wasn't performing, and we put her on a performance improvement plan, worked through it. This is somebody who'd been there 30 years. We had to let her go, but the reason I'm saying it's a good thing, she wound up finding something else, and it was better for morale in my group as well to see that we were serious about taking care of problems in the group.
That is a great story. Here's your audiobook. Here are a couple of them. Any other stories we should hear about? Any other stories? No? Okay, one over here. Let's hear what you have to say.
She had a employee who was a little disgruntled and frustrated at work and was voicing his opinion, and she pulled him aside and told him, let him say his piece, but then told him that that was not appropriate and it was bringing down morale, and he thanked her for bringing it to her attention. And through this whole interchange with him, she discovered his passion for recertification and is working with her boss to get him into that.
Wow, that is so terrific. Thank you. That was your story, and thanks for telling us. And this brings us to the fifth and final principle, be loving. Now, you may wonder, as Tina Turner might say, what's love got to do with it? What's love got to do? Well, if the Queen of Soul were, Queen of Rock and Roll, excuse me, with all respect to Aretha Franklin, if the Queen of Rock and Roll were here, here's what I would tell her about why love is so important in the ethically intelligent life. A couple of months ago, I bought this gizmo because in New York it gets kind of cold over the winter and I wanted to work out inside, so I got this $60 mini stepper, and it was terrific. It worked great for a couple of days, and then it started squeaking. Like, if you remember Green Acres, remember Ava Gabor and Eddie Albert's Rusty Spring Bed? It sounded like that. Now the thing is, the mini stepper worked fine. It was completely functional, it just sounded horrible. So I did some research and I discovered that the best solution for this was a little WD-40. I used a little WD-40 and the squeak went away. So now it worked great and it didn't sound like Ava Gabor's Rusty Bed from Green Acres. Love is the WD-40 of the ethically intelligent life. You can go through life without it just fine. You can be ethically intelligent by doing no harm, by respecting people, by being fair, by making things better, and not be a loving person. But don't things go so much better when you squirt a little WD-40 in the form of love in your life? It really does make a difference, and I'm going to demonstrate how it does. Have you read Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People? He shows 15 simple but powerful ways of making a positive difference in the lives of other people. And one of the things he talks about is the importance of showing genuine and sincere appreciation to people. It takes very little effort, but it makes a big difference. You may be saying right now, well, I do that all the time. I let my colleagues know, I let my boss know, I let my reports know, I let my family know, I let my friends know that I appreciate them. But did you know that there are people all around you who feel unappreciated, but are unwilling or unable to tell you that they feel unappreciated? It's true. In fact, there are people in this room who feel unappreciated right now. Raise your hand if you feel unappreciated. Young man, would you come up here? Yes, this young. Yes, I'm serious. Yeah, come on up here. Because here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. When someone tells a room of 800 people that they're not feeling appreciated, they're telling the truth. Come on up here. Okay, John.
I do appreciate you calling me a young man.
Come on up here, John. Now listen, for whatever reason, John is feeling unappreciated. Now I'll bet you've done something, or no, this is not a plant, right? We didn't arrange this.
No.
I've never met you before in my life. You don't owe me any money and I don't owe you money.
That's the truth.
So, have you done anything, John, recently that you feel deserves some appreciation?
Yes, I have.
What have you done?
contribute to my team where I work to meet our clients' needs.
And the team really didn't appreciate you.
I don't know. They don't. I guess they do, but they don't talk about it much.
Well, I think that's horrible. And we're going to make up for this nasty, ethically unintelligent team of Johns. Because for the next minute, my friends, we're going to give John the loudest standing ovation known to man or woman. Stand up, and for 1 minute, give John the loudest standing ovation of all time.